Good morning. My name is Curt Sonney, and I'm the chairman of the House Education Committee. And I'm joined here today by PASSHE Chancellor Dan Greenstein and Board of Governors Chair Cynthia Shapira and Representatives Topper and Schroeder. Affordable, career-relevant post-secondary education is key to the future and health and well-being of this Commonwealth and to the health and well-being of this nation. The PA state system is a critical part of that future. Operating sustainably, affordably, and effectively, it will help ensure that we prepare the educated workforce that will drive our economy, produce the healthcare workers, business leaders, educators, engineers, professionals that all of our communities, whether rural or urban, need to thrive, and provide a reliable pathway into and beyond the middle class for all Pennsylvanians, including opportunities for adults who need to be reskilled or upskilled to maintain their viability in a changing labor market. Yet, as we all know, the state system is facing considerable challenges, both internally and externally, challenges that threaten its viability. To survive, to flourish, and to shore up its future and the future health and well-being of the Commonwealth, considerable reforms are needed. Those reforms are currently being implemented aggressively, deliberately, and with an appropriate sense of urgency and a fundamental system redesign. While it's early, there is a great deal more to do. We are already seeing promising results. I want to commend the Board of Governors and the Chancellor for their leadership over the past year in demonstrating not just with words, but with action, that they are committed to the redesign, directly confronting the challenges that they face, and transforming the state system so that it delivers as the Commonwealth needs it to in order to secure Pennsylvania's future. But they can't do it alone. The full potential of the state system cannot be achieved without legislative action. Representatives Topper, Schroeder, and I have worked closely with the state system to develop a package of 3 bills that will give the system the tools they need to continue the system redesign. This 3-bill package, which we will introduce later today, will update our current laws to allow the Chancellor and Board of Governors to better manage and optimize the state system, as well as allowing it to be more flexible, responsive, and competitive in today's ever-changing higher education landscape. These reforms are needed to help the state system to continue to carry on with its mission of providing accessible, affordable, and high-quality education to our Commonwealth. I'd like to introduce the Board of Governors Chairwoman, Cynthia Shapira, for some remarks. Cynthia?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is a great day for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for the system, for our students, and for workforce development. I want to start by thanking Chairman Sonney, Representative Topper, and Representative Schroeder for working with us to develop these bills. For 37 years, the state system has operated under the same enabling legislation, even as the world of higher education has changed dramatically. The system was founded before the widespread availability of the internet and personal computers, technologies which have fundamentally changed higher education as they have changed most industries. The challenges and opportunities we are faced with today could not have even been contemplated 4 decades ago. These 3 bills represent years of self-reflection and critical examination by ourselves and by external organizations. They highlight practical solutions to so many of the challenges that we face in 2020. Most importantly, they represent an opportunity to streamline our governance, evolve from birth as a bureaucracy, reduce a costly regulatory environment that contributes to the upward pressure on student tuition, and allow us to even place greater emphasis on our main priority, the success of our students. As Chairman Sonney indicated, the system is working hard to ensure we do everything we can to make sure that all Pennsylvanians have access to a high-quality, career-relevant education at an affordable price for years to come. And as he also said, we cannot do it alone. We have done so much and we continue to do so much to redesign our system, but it's imperative that we work effectively with our partners in the General Assembly if we hope to achieve these goals and to remain the agent of social mobility and economic development that this Commonwealth needs to flourish in the 21st century. Achieving these reforms, these legislative reforms that will be introduced today, this has been a goal of mine since I became chair of the Board of Governors 3 years ago. This is a huge day for me, personally. So again, I want to thank Chairman Sonney and Representatives Topper and Schroeder for their work on behalf of the system, to its universities and our students in taking this first so critical step. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Chancellor Greenstein for some remarks.
Good morning. As Chair Sonney mentioned, the future health and well-being of this Commonwealth relies upon an affordable, career-relevant, and financially sustainable post-secondary option for all Pennsylvanians. That option is the Pennsylvania state system. This building would not operate without the system's graduates. And the same can be said for our healthcare and our education systems in this state, our small businesses, our financial services, pretty much any industry upon which the people of this Commonwealth rely. But as Chair Sonney has also pointed out, the state system faces significant challenges that we are confronting with a fundamental system redesign, a wholesale structural transformation, thanks in large part to the energy and leadership of Board Chair Shapiro. We have made significant progress in that redesign in areas I promised last year to House and Senate Appropriations committees, ensuring our transparency and accountability, stopping the annual increases that are above the rate of inflation in the price that our students pay for their education, aligning our costs with our revenues, and requiring all our schools, including our low-enrolled schools, to sustain themselves financially. I also committed last year that having made measurable success in these areas, that we would return with a request for the funding and much-needed governance and regulatory reforms that we require to drive transformation and realize the system's promise to the Commonwealth. This package of bills will enact those reforms and give the system the tools it needs to succeed, to become the sustainable, affordable, public higher education option that this Commonwealth shall depend on. I want to thank Chairman Sonney for his leadership and for supporting this vision of a sturdy, high-performing system that will drive social mobility and economic development in the state into the 21st century, and for strengthening this essential partnership between the General Assembly and the state system. And I want to thank Representatives Topper and Schroeder for working with us and providing leadership on these issues, and for their advocacy on behalf of the state system. Thank you.
Excuse me. I'd like to introduce Representative Brad Roy, who is the chairman of the House Consumer Affairs Committee, and he is also sits on the Board of Governors. Representative Roy. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. As Representative Sonney said, I am a member of the PASSHE Board of Governors, and I'm also a member of the House of Representatives. And I just want to say that this is a good package of bills. Anytime you look at higher education, there's obviously always going to be a need for funding, whether it's tuition or a state appropriation or whatever. And money's always talked about a lot, but something that doesn't get talked enough about is the ability to become more efficient, the ability to be able to do things easier. That's what this package of bills does. This package of bills, it gives the Board of Governors and the Chancellor opportunities to operate the system more efficiently, which means the cost will be lower, which means the system will be more successful. So I strongly support this package of bills, and as a board member, as a member of the legislature, I'm going to do what I can to help get this package passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Roy. The first bill in the legislative package, which I will be introducing, is House Bill 2171. This legislation will reform the governance structure of the state system, which will allow the Chancellor and Board of Governors to better respond to the pressures that they currently face. This legislation will vest the Board of Governors with the power to create, expand, consolidate, dissolve, or close an institute to better align the system with Commonwealth workforce needs and enrollment. However, these actions could not be taken after These actions could only be taken after a financial assessment is conducted, which will assess student support metrics, student success metrics, and the financial metrics. These critical powers are needed by the board to strengthen and ensure the success of our state system. My bill will make other changes to the Board of Governors and the University Council of Trustees. For example, it will set qualifications for any new potential member, ensuring they have the experience and expertise necessary. And finally, my bill adds language clarifying the powers and duties of the Board of Governors, the Chancellor, the University Council of Trustees, and university presidents, creating a more streamlined government structure. I'd like to introduce Representative Topper to give some comments on his House Bill 2172.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Thank you for being here. I'd like to start by saying I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee, and I remember last year when the Chancellor came before the committee, he was on the hot seat, and it was new for him and new for some of us as first-timers on the committee. What I was impressed about was you could just tell from his answers that this was a change agent, the change agent that we have been asking for and seeking for when it comes to the PASSHE system. And as he asked for the appropriations, it was made very clear that in order for us to look at putting more dollars into the system, we needed to see someone who was willing to step up and have the leadership vision to make some of those much needed changes that would bring the system into stability. And when I saw that demonstrated by the Chancellor and the Board of Governors, it basically gave me the initiative to want to say, look, I need to stand behind him. Obviously, if we're going to ask for him to make some of these decisions, then we need as a legislature to make sure that we have his back, and I think that's what this package of bills really does. I'll be introducing HB 2172, which makes several legal and financial reforms to the state system. And most importantly, the bill distinguishes between the use of state appropriated funds and non-state appropriated funds. The state appropriated funds account for only about 25% of the total funding for the system. But unfortunately, it basically brings all the regulations that we impose on state funding to the entire amount of money that the system receives. So if we're able to separate those out, that will reduce the regulations on the PASSHE system and hopefully make it more cost effective. In addition, my bill will clarify legal issues that have arisen over time, including affirming the system's sovereign immunity status and status as a government instrumentality, limiting the applicability of the municipal authorities to impose regulations on real property owned and titled to the system. And lastly, my bill will streamline the process whereby the state system can dispose of real property, giving the system greater flexibility. And that's really what we're looking to do, making sure that the Chancellor and the Board of Governors can act dynamically to the change winds that are coming and that can continue to provide a great benefit to our taxpayers, to the students of the Commonwealth, that both can succeed and thrive in this system. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Topper. And now Representative Schroeder will come up and talk about her House Bill 2173.
Good morning. I will be introducing the final bill of the legislative package, House Bill 2173. This legislation is designed to update and modernize Act 188. The Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education was established in 1982 by Act 188, but since its passage in 1982, there has been no significant attempt to update or modernize this law. First, my legislation will ease redundant reporting requirements by eliminating PASSHE's requirement to submit the Snyder Report to the Pennsylvania Department of Education and Joint State Government Commission. To fulfill the requirements of this report, each of the 14 universities within the state system invest approximately 140 hours each year, totaling 1,900 hours annually. Additionally, much of the same data is already reported and publicly available through the Federal Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. House Bill 2173 will also clarify language in Act 188 regarding cooperative use or purchasing agreements, and it will remove outdated language regarding student rental fees. Finally, this bill will add language to Act 188, which will exempt student records and emails from the state's right-to-know law. As a proud graduate of Millersville University, go Marauders, I believe these reforms are necessary to ensure that our state system can continue to provide affordable public higher education for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Schroeder. And we'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
On your bill, I mean, that's pretty sweeping authority that you're giving the board to close, to dissolve, to open colleges, institutions. In practice, what would that look like to, like you said, quote, align with workforce goals? What would that look like in practice on the board's end? I guess that may be more for the PASSHE folks.
Yeah, so one example would be nursing. So the state requires about 36,000 more nurses than are currently available or on track to be developed between now and 2025. It's a lot. Nursing is a high-cost program because, for a variety of reasons. As a consequence, small-scale nursing schools tend to operate underwater, i.e. they cost more than they generate in revenues. One obvious response to that would be to scale up and develop and deliver, and I'm not suggesting this is necessarily on the cards, but it would be an obvious response to develop and deliver a system-wide school of nursing, right? Because you're enabling cost efficiencies because you're operating at scale, producing a high-need employees for a particular industry. The board does not have the power to do that. It would need to cultivate the consent of its of its schools which are interested in nursing, their councils of trustees, their presidents, often their alumni, et cetera. In order to move forward, it would have to be a consent-driven process. Not a bad idea, but it takes years, and the state's requirement of its nurses is now, right? So this would give, for example, the board the authority to establish a school of nursing, and then sometime down the road, if it was discovered that that was not working as well as may have been thought, it could then dissolve and return it. So basic ability to respond to high-need areas that require more than one university acting together is simply not available to the board, and this would correct that situation.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think that's a great example. The idea behind it is that the board can finally act as an agent to plan, right? To actually be able to lay out educational workforce-based plans in conjunction with information about what the need is, working, with the governor's office and the agencies that deal with, labor and industry, et cetera, Department of Education that deal with these areas, and be able to come up with plans that actually meet this need. I think that we would still, by our nature and by our culture, go through a great deal of consent building, but we would be able to do it at a level where it would be structured and timelines can be put on things and we can make decisions and move forward, which we just cannot do now.
In the end, we need a system that is effective and efficient. And we need a system that can make decisions and implement those decisions in a timely manner. And it is too cumbersome today. We have a system that basically is 14 standalone universities not operating as a cohesive system. And we really need this to operate as a cohesive system so that the changes can be made whenever they might be. Even though this redesign is working towards a new beginning, it also creates the atmosphere that is much needed, that whenever changes are also needed in the future, that they have the power to make those changes. And so, we won't be waiting years and years and years and years for changes to be made. I think that it is a critical piece of, all of these bills are critical pieces of legislation, and I really look forward to seeing this system improved tremendously, and look forward to seeing Pennsylvania students again making the state system their #1 choice. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just to clarify, if it came down to it and there was a university that was no longer operating efficiently and student demand was down and that sort of thing, could the board, under the legislative framework that you have in place now, am I to understand that the board could not actually close an institution at this point?
Not without doing the due diligence. They could not. You mean today, without the legislation?
Yeah.
Yes, they cannot.
They can't, okay. Well, who has that authority then? Is it the legislature or the governor or?
General Assembly, I believe, correct? General Assembly.
So the board could act independently on that of the legislature?
Yes.
After these reforms? So what I was wondering about was, are you all worried about, since this seems to pull into greater focus or tighter focus this question of might a school or two have to close for the good of the larger organization, are you worried that since that question becomes maybe more a clear issue for the Board of Governors, are you worried that that might create some opposition in the legislature to these reforms? Because people don't want to lose their local institution, right?
Well, I would say that that's possible, but you know, I think that there's always resistance to close a facility, and nobody really wants to close a facility. But you know, maybe partnerships with one of the other colleges will work instead of stand alone. You know, we might not have 14 universities when it's all said and done. Maybe we'll have 12, but that doesn't necessarily mean that any of those campuses closed. They could simply become a branch campus of one of the other universities. You know, there's a lot of options that will be available should we get this legislative package through the General Assembly.
Another thought that occurred to me while we were sitting here, and I just wondered, I would just be interested in your perspective on this. It almost feels like what would emerge out of this process is a PASSHE system that operates more like the state-related universities do now. You know, Penn State, Pitt, Temple have their boards of trustees that operate pretty autonomously from the legislature. They obviously come in every year and ask for appropriations. We always joke about that. They're private when they want to be, they're public when they need to be. But the point being that now it feels like the Board of Governors would be sort of like this overarching Board of Trustees that would have much more authority over the individual schools. Is that a fair analogy, would you say?
I would say that it is, yes. And I would say that model that we practice under today is no longer relevant. And these changes are critical for the sustainability of the system.
Okay. And then I just was curious about, I don't know if anybody has the history on it, but what was the reason for the system being set up like it was, where the board was relatively weak and did not have the ability to force through these changes?
I wasn't here, I can't tell you. It's been a long time. You know, we've made relatively few changes to this system over the years, very few.
Yeah.
And so that's why this appears to be such a radical move, when in reality it's not radical at all. It is simply trying to, you know, reestablish a governing system that really supports the state system as a whole. And yes.
Going off on another element of the redesign, you know, there's leadership up there. You're a leader on education in the General Assembly. There are some folks up here who represent areas that have PASSHE schools. There's a big financial ask to back the redesign, and I know that's not quite the purview of this bill, but do you think the General Assembly will be able to commit to meeting the PASSHE folks on that, because you will have tremendous sway on these issues? Is that going to be part of the consideration of moving these bills forward, to kind of put your money where your mouth is and back the redesign?
Well, yes, quite frankly. I mean, I believe if the General Assembly is willing to move forward with this package of bills in the end, and that will necessitate, you know, the additional dollars over time. You know, that's not going to be a one-time cash infusion by any means. You know, money is a different matter. That's the appropriations process, you know, and that's a little bit different than the legislative process of just running these bills. Even though they are tied together, there's no doubt about it. The time will tell on the money.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One of the things that we did speak about in the Appropriations Committee last time was understanding that with the redesign would come an additional ask for dollars. Now, the amount is always determined on a couple factors, one being the revenue that we expect to see from the state. But I think if you look at the reforms, what is encouraging as we look through this package of bills is that many of them are aimed at reducing the cost over time and making it more efficient. So it's certainly a lot easier for the Chancellor or PASSHE to come before the Appropriations Committee and ask for increased funding when we can see that they're also asking for the ability to make themselves more efficient. I can tell you as a member of the Appropriations, we don't always get that from the agencies that sit in front of us asking for more money. This is an opportunity where we do, where we are, and I can only speak for myself. I only have one vote on the Appropriations Committee, but I can assure you that my intention is to put, my money where my mouth is. We asked him to do a job. That job is being done, and I intend on supporting it.
Has there been any talks with Democratic leaders as far as where folks on that side of the aisle stand on this package, if there's support there or not?
Not at this time, there is not, but we have co-sponsorship are showing support on both sides of the aisle. I think it's widely recognized that changes have to be made. And everybody knows that the legislative process is not easy, and we will have, I'm sure, very robust discussions concerning these bills. Any other questions? Thank you.